Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's begin your daily quiz. Question number 1 on your screen is this. Consider the following statements with regards to the UAPA law. Number 1. The law was originally enacted in 1967. Second, as per the Act, an investigating officer is required to obtain the prior approval of the Director General of Police, that is the DGP, to seize properties that may be connected with terrorism. Third, UAPA has life imprisonment as the highest punishment. Which of these given statements is or are correct? Out of the three statements, the correct answer here would be A, since 1 and 2 are correct. The third statement is wrong, since the highest punishment given under UAPA includes death penalty. UAPA, as you know, stands for Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, which was first enacted in 1967, however, has been in the news of late because of the increasing number of cases filed under this particular act. The UAPA Act specifically targets terrorism related activities. Although it is the country's main anti terrorism legislation, it has its own set of controversy, such as it becomes extremely difficult to get a bail under this particular law. As per the Act, if the police have filed a charge sheet that there are reasonable reasons for believing that the person is accused of the crime, the bail will not be granted to the person. The NIA, that is the National Investigation Agency, will be carrying out investigation in the cases related to UAPA. The investigation can be carried out by an officer of the rank of inspector or above of the NIA, or if the investigation is being carried out by the police, then the person in charge of the investigation has to be deputy superintendent or the assistant commissioner of police or of the above rank. The reason why we are discussing this is because of this article in the Hindu newspaper today, according to which the Editors Guild of India, that is an association of major editors across the country, have raised questions about the usage of UAPA, saying that it is being misused in Tripura, since multiple journalists have also been arrested under this particular act. Question number 2. Consider the following statements with regards to Molnupiravir. Number 1. It is the world's first antiviral medicine which can be taken as a pill for the treatment of COVID 19. Second, it was originally developed to treat influenza. Third, the drug has been code named EIDD 2081. Which of these given statements is or are incorrect? The answer here is D, since all the three given statements are correct. This is the world's first antiviral drug which has been given permission for usage in the United Kingdom. During the trials, it was found that the drug is reducing the risk of hospitalization by approximately 50%, which is a major improvement as compared to the earlier drugs which are under the trial stages. This article in today's Hindu newspaper tells us about the fact that this drug was originally developed to treat influenza, and its application is through inhibiting the replication of certain RNA viruses inside the human body. Although it seems to work like remdesivir, but there are certain changes in the application of these two drugs. The third phase trial of this drug have recently been concluded in 170 cities around the world and have given successful results. In fact, two Indian pharmaceutical companies, including Aurobindo Pharma and MSN Laboratories, had also asked for permission for conducting trials of this particular drug in India. Moving on to the third question. Which of the following was not amongst the climate change targets announced by India at the recently held climate conference at Glasgow? Number 1. India will achieve net zero target by 2070. Second, India will ensure 50% of its energy will be sourced from renewable energy sources latest by 2040. Third, India will also reduce its emissions intensity per unit of GDP by less than 45% latest by 2030. Fourth, India would also install 500 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2030. Which of these is not amongst India's target? The answer here is B. The reason is this particular target of 50% of our energy from renewable energy sources will be done by 2030 and not 2040. Now, apart from the first one, most of the other targets that Prime Minister Modi talked about are actually an upgradation of India's earlier targets that we spoke about in the Paris Climate Deal. For example, in the Paris Climate Deal, we had committed that 40% of our energy will be sourced from renewable energy, which we have increased to 50% now. Similarly, we had first talked in Paris that we will reduce our emission intensity per unit of GDP by 33 to 35%, which we have now increased to 45%. A, C, and D are absolutely correct. The reason why we are discussing this is because of this article in the Indian Express today, which talks about India's commitments made at the Glasgow summit and are we in line to achieve those or not. It says that India's emission intensity is already 24% below 2005 level. So we are on track to reducing it by 45% as we have committed at Glasgow. Of all the promises that India has made at the Glasgow summit, the two which seem to be slightly unlikely are the net zero target, because the author says that India has not put in any roadmap in place to achieve it. However, since 2070 is a long way away, there is still plenty of time to look into that target. The second target that India is slightly unlikely to achieve is the forest cover target. India has promised to create a carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide through forest cover by 2030. However, the government has been struggling to increase India's forest cover over the past decade or so, so this target needs to be monitored more seriously. The other targets of emission intensity and renewables are still more achievable as compared to the other targets. Next question, number 4. Consider the following statements with regards to the Indian government's plan to list India's government securities in the international bond indices. Number 1. The RBI had earlier notified a fully accessible route for investment by non residents in government securities without any ceiling. Second, the move is expected to increase foreign inflow into India's debt market. Third, it will help the government in managing its market borrowing program. Which of these given statements is or are correct? The correct answer over here is D. All the given statements are absolutely correct. There was an article in today's Indian Express which talks about the fact that Indian government's long-term plan of listing India's government securities in the global bond market is now at a verge of being implemented. It was in the year 2014 when, during the government budget speech, the government announced that they are planning to list government's securities in the international market. There are a lot of benefits of this. For example, an increased foreign inflow into our debt markets, which will help the government in managing its borrowing program as well. The danger in this case is that a lot of these bonds, if together try to pull out of the Indian market, it would result in the downgrade of the status of Indian government security. However, the government says that we now have enough foreign exchange in the vicinity of $640 billion to ensure that we can withstand any kind of volatility if it does happen. Earlier this year, the RBI had also notified a fully accessible route for investment by non residents in the government securities without any upper limit. So, that was also a step in this direction. Ever since the Indian economy and the market was hit by the COVID crisis, the government has been increasing its borrowing program, and this move of borrowing from the international market through the government securities will only help in that regard. Moving on to question number 5. This is a previous year question asked in 2019 prelims. In which of the following relief sculpture inscriptions is Ranyo Ashoka, that is King Ashoka, mentioned along with the stone portrait of Ashoka? Number 1, Kanganahalli. Second, Sanchi. Third, Shahbaz Garhi. Fourth, Saugara. The correct answer here is Kanganahalli, which is a place in Karnataka about 3 kilometers from Sannat. It's one of the most significant excavation sites for Buddhist monuments since it bears the name Rane Ashoka and also contains the first inscribed portrait of Ashoka. In this portrait, he is surrounded by female attendants and queens. Moving now to the fact of the day, and today we will be discussing this art that talks about increasing suicides amongst businessmen in India in the past year. The National Crime Records Bureau, which keeps a record of all the suicide committed in the country, tells us that in the year 2000, surprisingly, more businessmen committed suicides as compared to farmers. This also is an indication of declining economy in the times of the COVID crisis. Over the past few years, this is the first time that the number of businessmen committing suicide has gone above the number of farmers who have had to go through this unfortunate route. One of the reasons that has been responsible for increase in these numbers is the default on loans that has been seen on a greater scale during the COVID crisis. The term businessman here includes tradesmen, vendors, and people belonging to the category of other businesses. The year 2020 also saw an increase in the overall suicide figure in the country by 10%, and the number unfortunately has now reached above 1.5 lakh. This is an important data for you to remember, which can be quoted in the mains examination. This is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching.